Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gay with God podcast, and I am really glad that you're here, and I thank you so much for all of your comments and sharing and subscribing. It really does make my heart sing when I hear from you. And when I hear people saying, that's exactly what I needed to hear, or people have said, I have replayed that a couple of times because I really liked it. And I'm just so happy that anything that I offer is helping you on your own journey and that's giving you light and some comfort. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to be able to help those who are still questioning, can I be gay with the God of my understanding? And it is a resounding yes. Yes, you can. So for you and for me back in the day, I really did have a hard time with that. I had a hard time loving God in general because it just seemed so ugly in the Old Testament. It seemed so patriarchal, and that drove me crazy. I didn't want to be controlled by a father that was abusive. And so it really twisted with my head a little bit. Although I knew that if I didn't give in to the pressure of loving this God that I was being taught is the God and the one I had to follow, or I'd go to hell. It's such an injustice to put that on us, to have to live by this standard of there's only one way, there's only one door, there's only one path. Because for anybody that knows anything at all, there can't just be one way through so many things. And it's not that I don't think that Jesus died for our sins and that Jesus is the gate to where we may be going. Theologically, it can't just be one solid, rock solid way because we're all so eclectically different. We're emotionally different. We're educationally different. We come from different countries, different origins. God created a world, not just our state, not just our county, not just our United States. God created earth. God created the heavens and the lights and placed animals and humans here. And there's no way in my mind today that I can believe that God just made things here for us. Now, I don't know if there are any more inhabitable planets that we haven't been shown yet. I don't know if there are really aliens. I do believe that that is a possibility. I do believe that there's a possibility that there are other planets that are housing another set of people or beings. I just think that there's just so much we just don't know, and that we have to allow ourselves to question, to explore, to open our minds to new possibilities, because that's what the God of my understanding is. The God of my understanding is way bigger than I'll ever understand. The God of my understanding is way bigger than just planet Earth. The whole solar system was created by the God of my understanding. So if God created the entire solar system with the black holes and the this and the that, how pious is it for us to believe we are the preferred beings of God? We are made in God's image, it says in the Bible. That is really a historical document and not really the exact words that God ever spoke or that Jesus ever spoke. I'm sure some of those are the exact things that Jesus might have said, but nobody was going around with a red ballpoint pen writing down Jesus's every single word as he spoke them. You have to remember that back then, you know, there was not going to be an accurate document that says everything exactly the way it is. If you learn anything about the Hebrew language, there could be 20 different definitions of a word that was used in Hebrew. And when translations happened with the original documents that might have been in Aramaic, might have been in Greek, there was no way for people to be able to just pick the right specific word, because how would they know? They weren't there. They didn't see the intention of the speakers. They didn't sit there and ask them, do you want me to write it this way? It's just, there's so much we've learned about the Bible and the original scrolls, and whether or not the people in the Bible actually wrote the specific books that have their name on it. It's just not cut and dry, black and white. It's just not. So when I think about the journey that I've been on to find a relationship and a loving relationship with the God of my understanding, it's a work in progress. It always has been. And Reverend Yu said on one of his posts that I just saw a little bit ago was that theology is supposed to be expansive and ever growing, because if it's not, it's basically a cult. We can't have a theology about God or about any of the books in the Bible and think about it has to be just this one specific way, because as we change, as we evolve, as we expand our own brain, it's going to be different. It's going to continue to evolve, or we would all be still laying in our crib, not even crawling. It's like, okay, that's the way you came in the world, and you're not going to grow. You're not going to do anything. You're just going to be the thing that was created right there, and you're done. Now, how silly is that? And even though that's a silly example, it is very true about our own theology, our own belief about God, and our life with God. It has to be a personal relationship. It has to be something that you're growing into and through, and there's not an end point until it is all over, until whatever happens at the end of our life or the end of this planet happens. We're not going to know every answer to every question we've ever had about God or Jesus, because we don't even know about he was born. Jesus got lost and was in the temple talking to people in the synagogue, and then he had a ministry, and then he died. So we don't have his childhood to look back on. We don't have any of the things that would continue to flesh him out for us. All we got were the highlights. This is what you need to know that we think you need to know. There were other things I really wanted to know, but these are the things you need to know according to the people who chose the canonical books that went into the Bible. It has nothing to do with the entire picture. There were other books that were kept out because they didn't want women to have power. There were other books that were kept out because they didn't make a whole lot of sense to anybody who was reading them. And they had a mission. The original people who translated into the first Bible, they had a mission. And the King James Bible would have been the one that they wrote for King James, because he's the one that commissioned it, and he's the one that was in charge of that. So we have King James's version, literally his own brain version of what he wanted this to say. And as we all know, in 1946, that translation included the two Greek words that should never have been put together and created the word homosexual. which was not in the Bible originally. It talked about perversions, it talked about abusive sex, it talked about demeaning people, but it did not talk about same-sex loving homosexuality. But yet, the people in power, the people who didn't want to have homosexuals running amok and having power and coming into their own and having a relationship with the God of their understanding, the original people who didn't want any of that and saw it as an abomination, learned that from the 1946 translation. And they have fought ever since to squash our pride, to kill us, to take away our rights, to make it impossible for us to do things in this world that other people do if you have the wrong president in office. And how discrediting is that you're not worth any more to the state or to the government, that you only have rights if there's a like-minded president sitting in the Oval Office. Because we've seen it time after time after time that it depends on which president is sitting at that desk and taking that pen and signing their name to some other kind of order, and it's not fair, right? It's just not fair that everybody else can have a legal marriage and nobody's going to say a thing about it, but our marriage is always contingent on, one, we had to work really, really hard to even get it, and praise all of those people who were feet on the ground and legislatively and just continue to relentlessly go for it. No straight person has ever fought that hard for their marriage. And I'm not talking about our African American siblings or other countries where so many things are out of order when it comes to women's rights. Basically, for today, I'm just talking about the LGBTQIA plus community, and that we have had to fight every single time a new president comes into office. And I do believe that the way things are going now, it is really, really likely that we will not have our marriage if Trump continues to stay in office, and if the Republican nationalists continue to have candidates that win elections and get into the White House. Our world on planet Earth will never be the same. And we've seen that with all of the bills they're doing and all of the way they're trying to expunge the world of anybody that's brown and not a Christian nationalist. So I need for us to wake up. I need for us to see the writing on the wall, that this isn't just something we need to get through, hunker down, it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay if the same people who put Trump in office continue to put the same type of people in office after him. And I pray to God there's an after him, because even though he's just their puppet, he has a lot of power when he speaks, because he's bamboozled people enough to where they're listening to him. And they think he's some kind of God when he's never even gone to church, doesn't even know how to hold a Bible up for a photo op without it being upside down. And you can clearly tell by his lifestyle that he has not committed his heart and soul to the God of our understanding or to anything sacred except for his money and his popularity. So I know that he is a child of God, but I also know that he ain't representing the God of my understanding, and he needs to take that word out of his mouth, according to my opinion, because it's ugly when he says it, because he doesn't mean it. And it's not coming from a relationship with God. It's coming as a press release. It's coming as I want all the Christians that think I'm a Christian to continue to think I'm a Christian way of doing things. So I know you can sense that I have a little hostility in me, which continues to bounce up against trying to be the person that the God of my understanding would like me to be. I know that God understands why I'm having this anger and this rage right now. I know that it's coming from a fear of not being able to fix anything that's going on in the world, not being able to have an impact in that. And so I know exactly where I am, and the God of my understanding knows where I am too. And we talk about it every single dang day. I can promise you, we talk about it every day. And I believe that God is struggling with me, not because God doesn't have any power and not because God doesn't know how to fix it. It's because God loves us so much and we were created to be in relationship with the God of our understanding. And we're falling so short of the original intention for Adam and Eve to be companions and rule with God. And so it all got messed up way back in the day. And I'm not blaming Adam or Eve. They also made choices, and I would have maybe made the same choice. So I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that I think God hurts when we hurt, and God's love for us has no boundaries. And I think God would really like us to be happy, and God knows how to get us to do that, and yet not going to make us do it. It has always been a choice. And I appreciate that, but sometimes if God would just make the choice and we could move on, that would be great. And yet the struggle is where we grow, the pain is where we get stronger. We're in a situation now where when we get through this, we are all going to be forever changed, and we will have found strength that we didn't know we had. We will find a deeper love for people that we normally would hate. We will find that the hardest things in the world, the most deplorable things in the world, cannot stop us from being connected to the God of our understanding. They may take away a lot of things, but our personal relationships with the God of our understanding cannot be touched. My love for my wife, whether we have a stupid paper saying we were married or whether it gets annulled, my wife and I are solid in the love we have for each other, and nobody can take that away. They may stop us from holding hands. We don't hold hands in public anyway because my wife is terrified about what would happen if we did. So we don't do it. They can't stop us, though, from being eternally connected in our souls to one another, because we have had that connection, I think, even lifetimes before this one. We're solid. We know what we have, and they can't take that. So you might mess with my money, and you might mess with my actual marriage document. You might mess with a lot of things, but you can't mess with my relationship with the God of my understanding, and you can't mess with the emotional connection that I have to my wife. So, other than that, we are living in a world where we get to choose who we elect into office, who we are supporting as president. We get to choose how we stay in a place of radiating love through all of this mess. And I'm not saying it's easy. I say that every week. It's not easy. And I am often failing at that part. But when we connect to the love of the God of all that is, and the Creator that made us to be exactly who we are, there is nobody that can mess with that unless we give them the power to do so. So let's keep our power, the power of love, the power of compassion, the power of rightness. What is right? How do we treat people in the right way? That's who we are, and that's what they can't take from us, and that's how we're going to get through this, with loving the God of our understanding and not letting anyone get in between us and God. Thank you, everybody, for sharing this moment with me. I love y'all, and I hope that you will continue to stand proud and tall in your relationship with the God of your understanding. Check out my Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly Zoom group entitled My Faith Journey. If you're looking for support, community online, wherever you live, you can get onto the Gay with God Facebook page, and every month we get together on Zoom for My Faith Journey group. If you need support and help through your coming out or your faith journey, or just to continue to have somebody to bounce things off with when you're not feeling so resilient and you're feeling a little lost, please go to the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and see how you can connect with me. I also have that link for a free confidential session on the show page notes at empoweredmidge.podbean.com for each episode. And if you would like to check out my memoir, Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story, I would love for you to get a copy of that book. You can go to my website, gaywithgod.com, and get a signed copy, or on the show notes, you can also find a link to buy the memoir. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, or not even sure if you are gay, God has always been within you, even when you didn't know it. You have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.